Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. In my previous video I posted a tutorial on how to draft a basic skirt. So in this tutorial we'll be talking about how to sew a fully lined skirt, and this is the result I got after sewing. If this is your first time coming across my page, kindly subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. So this is the pattern I drafted in the previous tutorial that I'll be using to sew the basic skirts. So I'm going to cut out the pattern from the paper following the lines correctly, and that's the back pattern. And I'll also be cutting for the back, for the front pattern also, and this is what it looks like. So I'll place the front pattern on a folded edge of the fabric and I'll make sure I pin it down. So I'll be adding 0.5 inch allowance to the top part of the skirt, and I'll also be adding 1 inch to the side seam, and I'm going to be cutting the fabric following the allowance I added both on the side seam and also on the top parts of the skirt. So I'm going to fold the fabric again so I'll be able to cut the back parts of the skirt, and I'll be pinning it down first. Then I'll be adding 0.5 inch to the top part of the skirt also, and I'll add 1 inch to the side seam, and I'll also be adding 1 inch to the center back for the zipper allowance, and that's it. So I'm going to cut the fabric following the allowance that I added. So I'm done cutting, and this is what they both look like, the front and the back pattern. So I'm going to reduce the pattern by 1.5 inch at the hem, and after reducing it I'll use it to cut the lining, and this is what the lining and the main fabric look like, and I've transferred the dart from the paper to the fabric. So I'm going to sew out the darts on the front piece and the back piece, and I'll also sew out the darts for the lining, also for the front piece of the lining and also the back piece of the lining. I'm going to go ahead to join the side seams. So I'll be placing the right side of the front fabric and the right side of the back fabric facing each other. So I'm going to pin the sides of the fabric, and I'll be sewing out the 1 inch allowance that I put in the side seam, and I'll be doing this for both the fabric and also for the lining. When I was done sewing, I made sure I ironed the side seam so that the seam will lay flat after sewing, and that's it for the front and the main piece and the lining. So I'm going to place the both sides of the back pattern facing each other, the right side facing each other, and I'm going to remove 7 inches for the zip opening and 5 inches for the slit opening plus the 2 inch, making it 7 inches, and I'm going to sew out 1 inch at the center back. So the length of both points, I'm going to calculate it, and I'll also mark the same length on the lining after removing the zip opening on the lining. So the amount I'm using to sew, whatever I'm sewing as the amount in the main fabric, that's the same amount I'm going to sew on the lining. And this is I ironed the slit part and also the zipper part. The next thing I'm going to sew is the hem. So I'm going to place it, the lining and the fabric, right sides also facing the right side, and I'm going to pin it down together, the main fabric and the lining together. Then I'm going to sew it straight. Make sure you pin it so you will not have any of the fabric longer than any side. So I sewed it, then I made sure I ironed it, and I made sure the lining is the same length with the with the main fabric at the top parts. So to sew the slit, watch closely what I'm going to do in order to sew the slit. I'm going to turn the wrong sides of the fabric and the lining, and I'm going to open the part I just ironed at the hem, and I'll make sure I place the opening of the slits on the lining and the opening of the slits on the fabric, on the main fabric, to match each other. That is where the sewing started from, at the slits area. I'm going to match it to where the sewing started started on the main fabric, and I will sew it out with the 1 inch allowance that is there. And when I was done doing that, I ironed it, and this is what it looks like at the front sides of the fabric and also at the back side where the lining is. And I also fixed my zipper with the 1 inch allowance at the center back also. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to make sure I turn the zipper allowance with the 1 inch on the lining. So watch carefully how I'm going to place the lining on the main fabric, right? Making sure the right side is also facing the right side. So I just repeated the process again in case you didn't understand it the first time. Just make sure that the left side of the lining is matching with the left side of the fabric, and the left side of the fabric, right side of the fabric is going to match with the left side of the fabric, and you're going to sew it from the top to where the zip opening stop. So this is what it looks like, and in the front part, and also this is what it looks like at the back. So this skirt doesn't have band. If it has band, I would have removed it from the pattern. I would have removed the band inch from the pattern. So I'm going to close up the top part of the skirt right now, and to do that I'll have to open the one part of the lining with about 3 to 4 inches opening, but the opening should not be too big. It should not be more than 4 inches opening. So I'm just going to open it there, and I'm going to turn the fabric, the whole fabric, both the lining and the main fabric, through that opening. Now I'm going to make sure that I place the lining and the main fabric right sides facing the right side also. After fixing your zip, to get the placing for the top part, it will not be difficult again. So I'm going to place it right side facing right side, and right now I'm going to sew out the 0.5 inch allowance that I put on the top part of the skirt. Make sure you pin the skirt properly, and I sewed it out, and this is what it looks like. And I'm going to turn it back through the same opening, through the same 3 to 4 inches opening that I made on the lining, and this is what it looks like. And when you are turning it out, make sure you bring out both edge of the zip well. Make sure you bring it out well. So for that part that we opened on the lining, I will sew it with about 0.1 inch allowance, or you use an hemming gum to seal it. So this is what it looks like when I was done sewing the front part and also the back part. Note that this method of sewing can also be used for a longer skirt. It's not a must use it for a short skirt. You can also use it for a short or a longer skirt. So this is what it looks like, and every part of the skirt is fully lined.